Oh, hello, and welcome to Aldente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the Stands for Evil.
I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have Midna's Sorrow. So, we are into the new year, 2025. And I'd just like to say I'm disappointed in all of you out there. I put out two calls to action for Jeff the Killer stories for Jeffuary this year, and I got nothing. I don't know if it's because like social media is dying, or just like my two call outs or like call to actions, or like my two like request Twitters and Blue Sky stuff just got like eaten up by the glut of the feed. But yeah,
we've done all of them.
I don't think that's possible.
No one writes Jeff stories anymore. No one likes them.
So anybody out there, if you're listening to this now and you know of a Jeff the Killer creepypasta,
no, we've done them all.
Please send us a link via an email or through one of our social media platforms. And the links and stuff of that for those will be at the end of the show.
Sure to sabotage those as well, so you can't actually hear what he's saying.
But I digress. We are opening up the new year with a Vigipasta, a Zelda creepypasta, no less. So yeah, Midna's Sorrow. It's by AllAroundAwesome on creepypasta.wiki. And I suppose we should go on to our initial recommendations before we kickstart this thing in its entirety. So I'm going to partially recommend this, but it borders on like a non-recommendation.
I'm going to not recommend this.
Also going to not recommend this one.
All right. Well, let's dive in and see why we gave those quite harsh recommendations.
I mean, it might change depending on what we say when we're talking about it, because that's happened before.
That's
like,
true.
I kind of didn't like this, but now that you talk about it and we figure out what's going on, maybe it is actually at least half good.
Yeah. Well, that's why we do the show, for the most part. But let's start with the rundown, featuring Nair A. Tor, since we never get a proper name for this character, for the narrator. So, Nair loved Twilight Princess when it first came out. It was their favorite Zelda game. But then, partway through the game, specifically in the Temple of Time dungeon area, Nair got really frustrated with the game and rage quit. They left the game for 2 years before finally coming back around to play the game. When they loaded up the game, they noticed their save file was oddly different. They didn't have some of the story items they clearly would have received from where they left off, and they were back to the starting 3 hearts. That is just a staple of beginning Legend of Zelda games. They tried the game anyway, and discovered a very different and dark Hyrule, or darker than Twilight Princess's Hyrule. It was an endless dark space of Hyrule Field, with Midna severely injured on Link's back. Link was in his wolf form at this point in the game.
She injured? I thought she was just on his back.
No, yeah, she was injured in the way that there's a part in the game that the story references where Midna gets like blasted by light energy. And
gotcha.
Being a creature of shadow, she like it wounds her like gravely, and so there's a whole sequence where you're like carrying her on your back as she is like mortally wounded, and there's a whole like and the whole it's where the Midna's Lament comes from, because it's a very sorrowful song that plays as you're epically trying to get her back to Princess Zelda, so that she can be able to heal her. But yeah, this is the same kind of situation in this situation, or the same situation as is present in the story's gameplay. Nair tries to interact with Midna, being one of the few things that he can do in the game, and she asks Nair, presumably directly, like why he had abandoned or why they had abandoned her and Princess Zelda to stop Ganon and Zant, the two villains of the game. Nair races Link and Midna through the darkness of the Hyrule Field, but eventually gets swallowed up by Shadow, just as Link himself speaks to Midna something unprecedented, assuring her that he will protect her. They end up in the Twilight Realm of the game, Midna's home turf, and it's here that we get Midna's Lament music playing again, replacing the normal music that plays in the Twilight Realm, but it is clearly reversed. Here, Nair finds Midna eventually in the palace of the Twilight Realm, in front of the triumphant villainous bosses of the game, and as this is happening, Link runs to her aid without Nair controlling him. And after this, the characters in the game were attacked with screaming and darkness, and the game went back to the main menu screen, but with Midna's Lament music playing yet again instead of the normal menu music. When Nair tries to select this file again, the game chastises Nair for abandoning the game world and letting it come to this. Aren't they so proud? Finn. So yeah, that was Midna's Sorrow. And I suppose we should move on to everyone tolerates grammar inquisitions at this point. I've got a couple here because this story has a bit of I noticed a couple of times in the story, like some of the sentences need to be like retooled a little bit or like fixed up a tad. So I'll start with this one here. I loved how you can transform into a wolf and see the unseeable as a human, and I love how the mood of the game really makes it feel like a really depressing storyline. So I think it should have as a human removed in there, so like and see the unseeable as a human, because you can't see the unseeable as a human version of Link. It's only when you're in Wolf Link form. So it just doesn't seem to fit there. So it's like, I love how you can transform into a wolf and see the unseeable.
Like, so what it should be is, I loved how you could transform into a wolf and see the unseeable, comma. And as a human, I love how the mood of the game really makes me feel like a really depressing storyline. So the depressing storyline is connected to human, and the unseeableness is connected to wolf.
Yeah, because that was a cool thing in the game. Was like you could like see the ghosts and stuff like that or you could see ghosts, and you could see like scents and treasures and like follow scent trails and stuff like that as a wolf, which you couldn't do as a human. So, and then we move on to the next sentence here. Now, I started playing the game in 2011. I was old enough to start using my sister's GameCube, and I played with it all the time. So I decided to fix this sentence so it reads like this. I started playing the game in 2011, which was around the time I was old enough to start playing with my sister's GameCube, period. Just full stop. Don't need like, I used to play it all the time, and I was like, now I started playing. Like, you don't have to really start the sentence with like, now I started that. Like, that's more for like dialogue than when you're writing a story. Even when you're telling a story.
Yeah, but it's like, maybe it's because it's told informally.
Yeah, but like the story is being written. It's not technically like they're writing it for for somebody to read. So like, I just feel like it wasn't necessary to have the front now. Right meow.
Right meow.
Yeah. It just felt like it was going on and on. It was like at the end of it, it was like, I was old enough to start using my sister's GameCube, and I played with it all the time. It's like, oh yeah, we got it. Like, you don't need to double up on that. So, and then the next thing I have is this one. Now, don't get me wrong. I still play Zelda games, but I was sort of avoiding Twilight Princess since I wasn't really into the game as much as I was then. Seeing as though my social life had gotten bigger and I was being more productive aside from just playing video games. But I decided to start playing the game, or I decided to start playing it again soon. So I had to fix this because first off, that's a run-on sentence. Like
All
up
one
until
sentence.
it's all one sentence except for after aside from just playing video games, period. But I decided to start playing it again soon. So like aside from so I tried to fix it like this. Now don't get me wrong, I still play Zelda games, period. I was just sort of avoiding Twilight Princess since I wasn't really into the game as much as I was then, period. My social life had also gotten bigger, and sorry, my social life had also gotten bigger, and I was being more productive aside from just playing video games, period. And then maybe just get rid of that front butt in the next one.
That'll be brought up at all in the future.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure there won't be a conjunction junction.
No.
But yeah, that's how I'd fix that run-on sentence, is add a few periods in there to like break it up into some smaller, more manageable sentences.
Yeah. Let the reader have a break.
And the next one I have here, my first file that I was working on that was supposed to have all the fused shadows and a few pieces of the Mirror of Twilight only had 2 pieces of the fused shadows. No Mirror of Twilight, no Mirror of Twilight, and I only had 3 hearts. So I feel like it should possibly, first off, it is kind of fairly run-on, and actually I didn't put a period in there at all, but the big thing I had here was at the beginning we get my first file, comma, the one I had been working through, and that was supposed to have all the fused shadows. And then it keeps going on like the rest of it. It's just that first bit there where it was like my first file that I was working on, that was like, it was like, that was.
It kind of sounds like it's meant to be in brackets when it's like my first file, then in brackets talking about the file, then moving on.
You know what? That would probably fix it as well, because that would also break it up in a way.
Or maybe like reorganize it. So like my first file is the one that I was working on. I had this and that period, instead of going that had this and that had that.
Yeah. And my final one is this thing here. Is a sentence here. And I definitely wasn't stupid enough to not collect any pieces of hearts on the way. I was shocked to see all of this. So on top of, again, another front and, which I'm sure won't come up again. I just feel personally that it should read like this. So it's like I definitely wasn't stupid enough not to collect any pieces of heart. I feel like the way it reads, the original sentence, it's I definitely wasn't stupid enough to not collect any different pieces. And personally, I feel like it should always be like stupid enough not to not.
I mean, potato.
Yeah, this is a personal, like this is a nitpick.
Yeah,
but like that personally, I would have preferred like a not to collect versus to not collect.
Fair
do
enough.
not mesh. Do not mesh to flats. Like do hot.
Yeah.
But that's all I got for Grammar Inquisition. So, Mikey, these stands for evil.
I have a conjunction junction.
What? Huh?
Seen this coming.
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. All right. And next stop, Conjunction Junction. Doot, doot.
But at some point, I was stuck on the Temple of Time for a really long time, and I had a little rage quit, so I put the game down for a while. It was about 2 years since I played Twilight Princess, which is as long as I've had my Nintendo Wii I got on Christmas. But I decided to start playing it again soon. And I definitely wasn't stupid enough to not collect any pieces of hearts on the way. Finn.
Wow, it actually stopped there. I figured there'd be more later on.
Wow. Yeah, that's just. Yeah, no, he just. He started playing Twilight Princess, but he was not stupid enough to not get all the hurts. That's it.
I don't get it.
Completely mundane, non-scary story at all.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't played that game in a while. I started playing it again, and I'm glad that I wasn't dumb enough to not pick up the hearts. Finn.
Man, boy, was it hard. Boy, was it hard at the end. Near the end.
Man, it would have been hard if I didn't get all the hearts all the way.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah. For those unaware, Mikey grabs all the sentences throughout the story that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ends, or buts, because there's always better words to use.
Indeed. Gamer, do we have a grammar in yellow?
No, you got mine.
All right. I apologize.
It's fine.
Oh, I stole your thunder. I must
Oh.
perform Sudoku. I have dishonor my family. All right. Let's move on to actual thoughts. I'm going to start with the image. Not much to say. It works because it's the character Midna looking up the character like in the story.
Is that her in her damage form, though?
It is not. It is actually not in her damage form. Now that I think about it, because she would be a lot more. Let me show you like what her damage form looks like.
Like, it's absolute blasphemy, but I've never played this game.
I mean, that's fine. It's not. I mean, I don't hate.
As the gamer in yellow, it's absolute blasphemy.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. The thing is, like, what happens in when she's injured is actually she goes a little inverted, color wise.
Yeah.
I'll show you what she looks like.
A few hours later.
Yeah, that's kind of what she looks like when she's injured. So honestly, like if they had just had isolated Midna in this image, and like even just like reversed the audio, or not reverse the audio, or like
Invert that image that was there.
Yeah, inverted the image, and then like put the black back in the background, might have actually been more appropriate because she is supposed to look like she was injured when blasted by the light energy. So
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's just a little thing about the image. It would be good normally, but then you just point out, yeah, she should be injured properly. So fine. So move on to the next thing I have here. But at some point, I was stuck on the Temple of Time for a really long time, and I had a little rage quit. So I put the game down for a while. Shortly afterwards, I started getting into other games such as Persona 4, Golden, and Tekken Tag Tournament. It was about 2 years since I've played Twilight Princess, which is as long as I've had my Nintendo Wii I got on Christmas. And so, like, even from the get-go, like, there's other things that are mentioned in the story. It's like, man, I can kind of relate to this event, or like these events, because like this reminds me of how I got Skyward Sword and Skyrim in the same Christmas. And I played a little bit of Skyward Sword, got frustrated, and started playing Skyrim instead. And I didn't touch Skyward Sword for like 2 to 3 years.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, exactly. And even like the character, like near the beginning, like mentioning like the storyline and how much they love Twilight Princess and stuff like that. And the game really reminded them of Soul Eater, which is an anime. And that was good enough for them. It's like, yo, like legitimately, like I'm this person. like I do, like I love, like Twilight Princess is probably like it's kind of like between it and Majora's Mask were like my penultimate like growing up like video games or like Zelda games.
The Temple of Time in that game akin to the Water Temple?
Not really. I honestly don't think I think the Water Temple is more like akin to the Water Temple in
I guess that makes sense, doesn't it?
Like, because it is also like a very like you going back and forth, like back and forth between like different levels, trying to like basically lower the water level as well. Yeah. So yeah,
so you're literally doing the same shit all over again in that game as well.
Yeah, you're trying to raise. I think you're trying to raise the water level rather than like lower. No, you're trying to lower it in Ocarina of Time as well. So yeah,
fuck with it a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, there are a couple of puzzles that like in the Temple of Time that might have been annoying, but like because I actually recently played the Twilight Princess, like not recently, but like this year I started playing the HD version. And I don't think it was terrible. I don't think I had a hell of a time with the Temple of Time, but I digress. Also, like just again, like
that is. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, just like and just like the character like referencing like Soul Eater, like how it reminded that's like yeah, no, legit. Like I love Soul Eater. Like that's one of my favorite animes.
I didn't know what it was. I assumed it was a game because there's a couple of games called Soul Eater. It's like I guess it's one of those. Moving on.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure they're referencing the anime because it's like it came out around the same time as Twilight Princess. And it has like a similarly like kind of like dark, like they're mentioning like depressing storyline. I think maybe it's more like the dark kind of brooding atmosphere and like setting, which is kind of what Soul Eater has in it because it's like basically you are like the characters in the anime are weapon meisters, like they're weapon masters and their weapons are living beings, and they live in the Grim Reaper's city. Which is very like gothic and like stylized with like spookiness and stuff. So
should be,
yeah. But yeah.
Also,
so
in regards to the character, like getting rage quitting a game and then not picking up for 2 years.
Oh god,
that's like the worst thing to do because if you rage quit from a game because it's difficult, picking up 2 years later, you ain't gonna remember how to do anything. So then you have to relearn the game and then go back and do this thing super difficult.
Yeah, I mean, like hell, like how many times have you like played a game for a little bit and then like stopped, like not even rage quitting or like even like at a hard place,
yeah,
or, like come back to it and like you're almost better off just restarting the entire game from the beginning so you have context.
So you could be tutorialed again.
Yeah, exactly. I relate to that sentiment in this story of like that. Like I think that's kind of what the story is kind of trying to evoke, which I'll get to later in my notes here. It's just that feeling of like coming back to a game and like, where the fuck am I? Like, what the, like, and having that sense of not dread, but like anxiety of like, where am I? Like, what am I supposed to do? What am I like trying that recall that kind of foreboding recall of like what you're trying to do as you recontextualize like what you were doing in the game. Yeah. But I'll move on to the next thing I have here. There was a quick white flash on the title screen, but I figured it was just a small error since I haven't touched the game in a while. And I mean, so like they're playing this game on the Wii, which like you can actually play GameCube games on the Wii, or at least the older Wii consoles. And I mean, like when I heard this and like this is obviously trying to be like a red flag, like oh no, the game's glitchy and oh there's like a forebodingness, but like really like this could have just been like the white blank screen that like kind of kicks in sometimes when you load up a game on the Wii. Like that sometimes happens like right before like you like engage the game, like as it's loading they'll like flash white and then like kind of kick back in. So like maybe they're actually trying to describe it a little bit more like differently than that, but to me it doesn't seem like as weird as they're trying to make it to be.
Well, even like the character writes it off as just a weird glitch on that first one. So the first one isn't the problem. It's what follows.
Yeah, it's the Ben drowned aspect is like, what's wrong with my save file? What's wrong with the save file? Like why what? But I'll move on to the next thing I have. Actually, this is also something about like, so this is kind of what I'm getting at with from earlier about like the melancholy of the horror of the game, and this is where I was also referencing some Vigipasta tropes that I was picking up in this story. No text box appeared, but the camera did zoom to Midna's face. She had a very depressed look on and her fused shadow piece was a bit cracked. Her voice was heard, her actual voice, I mean, and she spoke in non-gibberish words. Link, where were you all this time? You were gone for so long. We've lost all our possessions. I was so sad, and Zelda, she... so we're going this route with this Vigipasta, where the game feels abandoned. We've seen this before, technically, in some of the older like Pokepastas we covered, where like you
themselves are abandoned.
Yeah, and like they're sickly or dead in your game, and like there's this like morose or like lamenting sadness that the character feels, and that the reader's supposed to feel as well, because like this character acts like they thought they were just playing this game. All right, I'm gonna turn off, and then they don't touch it for years on years, and then they come back to it and they find like all their Pokemon are dead or because they were abandoned. It's a very common video game trope of like just this melancholy horror of abandoning a save file in a video game. It's like abandoning your childhood or abandoning your nostalgia. And I know that's kind of hit or miss with our show, with us, and with audiences sometimes. I personally like the concept. I do think it would actually be a really cool idea to explore in a sci-fi horror game, or even like a game scenario, say like in Shadowrun. Sorry, Mikey. And I guess at this point, gamer, because like last couple of episodes, I've just been like coming up with ideas based off of the creepypastas to torment you with in our Shadowrun campaign. So
I'm expected at this point.
Yeah. But I could also see this happening in other sci-fi like genre games as well, like Eclipse Phase, where they deal with like VR and like augmented reality and stuff like that. Or even like a game like Little Fears, where you're playing as kids, because like this would also really work with like that kind of situation where you're playing as kids and you remember this game that you were playing like 2 years ago, and you finally find it again, and when you pick it up and start playing, you find like all your characters are abandoned, or like the spirits of your game characters like feel abandoned. They start haunting you in real life. The problem is that when you're telling that kind of story, it has to be done bigger than and more dramatically than what a lot of them end up doing, because you have to make us, the reader, care. And when you're making it like when you leave it confined to a game cartridge in a console, it can sometimes weaken the experience that you're trying to invoke. With a certain audience, I don't know if I've necessarily like been terrified by these ideas, but I have felt sad about it. But I know, like, again, Mikey like has a disconnect, because like usually you feel like it's like a dream sequence thing, or it's like, oh, it's just a dream.
Yeah.
It can't hurt me.
Well, I feel like it would have been better if we gotten more and say he started a new save file.
Yeah.
But Midna was still dead or whatever.
Or like there's a second Midna, like a ghost of like a Midna's shade that's like stalking him in his current game through and fucking him over in the game, because it's basically his ex.
It's like, this doesn't change what you did.
Yeah. Because like, again, like the idea of like a virtual space or a virtual reality or game that kept on going despite the fact that that it should have been frozen in time, because it like because you paused and stopped the game, and it because of that, because the hero wasn't there, the world in the game declined or faded away or corrupted by stagnation, because it wasn't able to interact with the user. I like that idea. It definitely needs to be done bigger.
Well, and the thing that sort of irks me is that there are games that do this.
Yeah.
Like the classic example is Animal Crossing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because in Animal Crossing, like, weeds will grow and whatnot, and when you talk to someone after you haven't played the game for a while, it says, "Oh, I haven't seen you in so many days," type thing.
Yeah.
Like, where have you been?
I think something similar also happens, I think, in Undertale, although I haven't like scratched that game yet, like really gotten into that game. But I've heard like apparently if you kill a few characters and then decide you want to go do a pacifist run and you restart the game, apparently unless you like completely like wipe the game off your computer, the game remembers what you tried to do, and like you can't go back from what you just did. Like I've heard that's something that they did in Undertale, where like if you try to like, oh shoot, I accidentally killed this character, I want to do a pacifist run, and you restart the game starts chastising you for just you thought you could just restart the game and restart and like do a pacifist run. No, you got to live with your actions, sir. And that's kind of what it is like it's the horror of having these unforeseen consequences.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think some games do, other games do that, but I think like for a story, when you're trying to like invoke that kind of like, you abandoned your childhood, you abandoned something and you weren't expecting to have consequences as a result of it. It has to be done a little bit more bombastically, or a little bit more directly toward the player character or the main protagonist, so that the reader feels a little bit more impacted. Again, like see like an idea of like, what if Midna's shade started stalking Nair in the real world after they picked up the game and like it shut off on them, and then now they're just being chastised by the ghost of a video game character they left abandoned in a doomed world state. So
it's got to be something that the player doesn't already know would happen if they didn't like beat the game. Like if Link doesn't save the day, Ganon's gonna win, and this is what's gonna happen. It's basically, this story is basically, you stopped playing the game and it went on without you, and that thing that you knew was gonna happen happened.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's even something that's referenced in the story that I was like, oh, like that would have been really cool if they had done something like kind of like what Mikey was talking about with like how Animal Crossing does it, where like long grass grows and stuff like that. So there's a part in the story where it's I decided to check the items menu to see what I had, and all I really did have was the slingshot, some water bombs, and the fishing rod. I also had a half bottle of milk. And when I read that, I was like, oh, it would have been really cool if the milk had curdled or gone bad in the description. Like, just to show, like, yeah, because it's
gourd was like completely covered in rust or something.
Yeah, exactly. And like, yeah, the bombs have like gotten like they've gone inert as a result. Like, yeah, like stuff like that. Like that would have been really interesting. Like, oh yeah, you left these items look a lot more haggard, as if they were like kind of just like cobbled together in a post-apocalyptic kind of situation, or a scavenge situation, rather than what the character got. They've had no time for care to be done to them to keep them maintained, since apparently the stasis ability of the stasis effect of like the menus and stuff may not apply, because like the rest of the world didn't enter a stasis when the player abandoned the game for 2 years.
And like in regards to the equipment, it is absolutely underused, because like all these things are listed, but like he doesn't do anything with them. Yeah, they're just there.
It's funny too, because like somebody in the comments of this actually said like, it's like, oh man, like you totally could have stopped Ganon at the end of this game, at the end of this thing, because you could use the fishing rod to bait Ganon away from and open him up to an attack. Because apparently that's something you can do in Twilight Princess when you're like fighting the boar version of Ganon in Twilight Princess, is you can pull out your fishing rod and like lure him away, like draw him off to in a direction so you can get a good shot on him.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
love that.
But and again, like it's interesting because like I did see like a lot of people in the comments also like saying that this is like their favorite creepypasta and stuff like that, and like I think it's probably because like this came out in 2013, this story. So it's like probably like, again, a lot of younger kids or like younger readers like read this and kind of familiarized with it. But like for us, like reading this, is like it's tame compared to what it could be with like how it goes. I think that
there's stuff like The Princess and stuff like that, which is similar, and it's like way more. Yeah, like but like that's when again, like it's an abandoned, like it's vaporware. It was a game that never existed, but its creation is still like alive for all intents and purposes, and it wants to exist, and like it goes into a horrible situation of like it comes out of the game and kills you, and then goes back into the game, and it can infiltrate other games. Like yeah, but like that makes you feel for the non-playable character, where in this Midna's just like, you left me. That's
Yeah,
bad. And then I don't know.
Well, that could definitely be fixed again if like she started like appearing kind of like either the story clearly kind of draws inspiration from like other creepypastas or has like that kind of same like motif. So like you could have something like again use some of the tropes to your advantage, like have the game creature or character as a ghost or an apparition start appearing after the fact after this experience. Like develop the story even further and have the character Midna like chastising them in real life and like because like that's how much this game has affected them. And then you either have a psychological horror where like your character is the protagonist in this is just like spiraling from like how deeply this apparently affected them. Or it's actually supernatural and like it is actually the ghost of a dead character that you abandoned. Because yeah, like this game also has like a bunch of like creepypasta or vigipasta like tropes and stuff in it, and it's just like you gotta it's great to have those like sometimes. You gotta push those like those a fair amount. Like for instance, the next thing I had actually here was the Twilight Realms theme was playing in reverse. And it wasn't the Midna's theme. It was the Twilight Realms theme. Okay, my bad. It's because they reference Midna's Lament like so much, and it is like an iconic Twilight Princess theme. Because like that whole sequence is so good, like so dramatic and so good. Like that music is awesome. But yeah, the Twilight Realm theme was playing in reverse, and it was a little unnerving. So creepy inverted game music, check. Yeah, like there's a number of like vigipasta tropes that I noticed in the story that like again they're not bad. It's just when you know.
It could also just be because like we're so desensitized to this.
Oh yeah.
Read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of creepypasta.
Well, that's what I mean. Like again, like the people that are commenting on this, like saying this is one of their favorite like creepypastas, or like they remember reading this earlier and it was like really good. Like I can't like be mad at those people because like
no, of course
obviously like if you like this, you like this like kind of thing. But like
us giving our opinions are just that, opinions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I just mean like it's like we've been at this a while, guys. There's a decade of material here. There's a decade of history here with us and vigipastas and creepypastas and pokepastas, all the pastas, spaghetti, rigatoni,
fusilli,
pastina, penne. Anyway, I could go on. Yeah, so it's like we're really just trying to like we're picking at this like to try and see like how we can make it better. But yeah, so I guess a bottom line for this is like I appreciate the concept it's trying to evoke, but it need to go harder, really, for me. And then the next thing I have here, this one's kind of somewhere along the lines of the story is I was brought to the Twilight Realm after a very long black screen break had appeared. And for some reason, I didn't just simply turn the game off at this point while I was waiting. Because, like, is it over? Click, done. Yeah. I don't mean to kick a dead horse of a joke. Because it's like that joke that's again another trope that happens in vigipastas. Why did you not turn off the game when it cut to black for like moments, for a long duration of time?
Because there's more story to tell.
I guess, but like again, sometimes when it's brought up, it's like it went to black screen for like 5 minutes. Were you really waiting there for 5 minutes?
Yeah, put on a stopwatch for 5 minutes. You know how much I hate that time-related stuff like that.
Yeah, I know, and like it's definitely the joke of like, why didn't you just turn it off? Then like it's like, oh, clearly this is busted. I'm just gonna restart the game. But if it had something where like it wouldn't let me turn it off, then we got some action here. Then we get some situation.
Yeah, because this entire thing is consensual. Because he is choosing to continue to do it, and he's not showing that he has no other choice.
Yeah, so Nair is choosing to stare at a black loading screen.
Not even just that, even just playing the game itself. That's like nothing is stopping him from experiencing anything. Like maybe he wants to keep watching just because he's curious of this glitch and he knows that if he shuts it off, it might go away. That's fair. but I don't know. There needs to be something holding him there, or at least affecting him in real life.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then my last actual thought here really kind of just hammers down what we were talking about earlier about like, so it's the last, the quote I have is the last bit in the story where it's like, I chose my file and a text box appeared with blue font saying, you did this. All right, there, mayor of Amityville or Amityville Beach. It's like, you did this. You left those beaches open. I'm referencing Jaws for anybody who doesn't know. But yeah, it's like you did this to us. We could have saved our worlds, but you couldn't just have some patience. Now, could you? You disgust me. Are you proud of what you've done? That's the end of the game, or the end of the story. And again, like we've kind of been saying, like I think a lot of gamers can relate to starting a game, even when they really like, and stopping halfway or at some point in the game, and not returning till like a long period of time has passed, and then having that worried recall of where you left off. So, like pushing that idea in the story, like that kind of anxiety or that kind of like disconnect or like that kind of confusion is really good in a story, I think. But it's got to be done way harder in the narrative. Like it's got to have more of an impact in the story to really have some like staying power, I think, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really all I got for Midna's Sorrow. So, Mikey, D stands for evil.
All right. Well, just the main issue I have is the trope of returning to a video game and the time has passed and the characters are angry type thing.
Yeah.
I feel there's other avenues to make that sort of thing more odd. Like, I know I have multiple books that I have started reading and have stopped reading.
Yeah.
So if I went back to them and suddenly the characters are chewing out me for stopping reading,
that would be fucked up. That's some never-ending. That's
your bookmark too.
That is straight up some never-ending story bullshit. I was like, wait, I'm this guy. Like, why are they talking to? That's my name. Why are they calling me out?
Or say the example of a movie, like you watch a movie partway through and then stop watching, and then if you come back to it like a while later, suddenly the characters in the movie are angry at you.
Yeah, like it's the meta textual like breaking of the fourth wall. Aspect of like it's like what is it? It's just like characters just like, wait, hang on, there's a ding ding ding, hello, we see you out there, and you're just like, I've been seen. Like in games it's kind of hard to do that. Like it's also like I kind of agree with you, in video games it is hard to do that because games by their very nature are interactive between the player and the game. Whereas like if that happens in a book or if it happens in a movie, those are set in stone or supposed to be set in stone according to reality. So
the nice part about what they did in this though is they added in actual voice lines.
Yes.
That's like the big weird thing in this, because Zelda games they just have gibberish, but there's like actual text to read.
Yeah, they
so
go
the
with
fact
like
that they actually straight up talk is the weird part.
Yeah, exactly. Like because like every time like Midna has ever talked, it's been in that like strange gibberish kind of language that like it's just nonsense. Or they do like and then like there's like a little text box of like their character like saying their actual words for you to read, because that was how they
sound effect. I did not hear it.
Yeah, I just basically like the character like the character just does a sound effect and then a text bar pops up, or like they'll say like a single word like hey, and then it's like greetings Link. Yeah, exactly that kind of thing. And that's how Nintendo basically like got away with like not having voice actor or not having not just Japanese voiceover stuff, but also had like didn't have to worry about like getting English voiceover work. They just had text boxes that the player had to read and read out their own thing. So yeah. And again, like when you do that kind of interactive, like that breaking of the fourth wall in a video game, like I've seen it done, and I've seen it done very effectively. I was playing when I first played Assassin's Creed 2, or it was either 2 or Brotherhood, and there's a sequence where like the one of the ancients in the game makes an appearance in front of Ezio, and then looks at you over Ezio's shoulder, and Ezio's like, what? and it's just staring at you. The character's staring at you because technically they're staring at Desmond, who is the modern character who's playing through Ezio. But it really feels like it's staring into you, who is like, because it's staring directly into the screen. So it's a really good effect of like unnerving feeling. And I remember like vividly being unnerved when Minerva, oddly enough, stares at the screen and starts addressing you. So,
shit.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff that you have to go do in order to make this more impactful. I think this kind of like concept.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then my next actual thought here. I have a quote. My first file that I was working on that was supposed to have all the few shadows and a few pieces of the Mirror of Twilight only had 2 pieces of few shadows, no Mirror of Twilight, and I only had 3 hearts. To which my response is the sad truth. His sister overwrote his save file with a 3-heart challenge file.
Oh my god, you're that also could be literally could be it, yeah. Because like he got pissed off at it, walked away from it. It was his sister's GameCube. So what happened is his sister played the game and then wiped that game because she didn't think his her brother or sister or whoever Nair is would play it again. So they just like restarted the game and like, did a 3-heart challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Good job mundanifying it. Well done, sir.
Yeah, that's actually super. Man, I thought I was mundanifying with like the whole weird white flash like start at the start of the game. It's like no, that's just loading. Yeah, hats off to you, sir.
And that's the end of my actual thoughts.
All right, gamer.
I think we literally talked about anything I had to talk about.
You've been chipping it at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I got nothing. Left.
That's fair. I mean, we did. The story's not very long, we did cover a lot of the material that was already there. So yeah.
Yeah, but like my biggest problem with the story in general is like nothing happens to the player, and he, like I said before, he is doing this by choice.
Yeah, it also just kind of ends. Like it just like it ends, and like you can guess. Like again, I'm guessing they ended this way because like, oh, it's a zinger. It's like, oh, don't you feel proud of yourself? It's like done, and it's like, okay, did they keep playing or did they just never play Twilight Princess again? Also, I thought this was their favorite game, and then like they never even finished it. Like that's the one thing.
This isn't like the 15th run that this person's done.
Like I really feel like that should have been the case where like because they say right off the hop, please help her. She's very, very low. No, that there's for some reason there's like a quote of like that says please help her. She's very, very lonely. But then like the actual story takes over with like Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess has to be my most favorite game in the series. And then it goes through it, and it's like they when they first played it, they got about halfway through the game, and then they got rage quit and stopped playing it and didn't want to touch it for 2 years. But it's their favorite game.
No, it's their favorite game in the Zelda series. This is also the only game they've played in the Zelda series.
Yeah. I really do feel, like it felt really kind of weird, like just juxtapositioning that, like, oh, this is my favorite Zelda game. I've not finished it, but it's my favorite.
Yeah, you figure it would be the least favorite.
Yeah.
And you figure it'd be like, it's my least favorite in the whole series, and I'll tell you why. Because
Yeah,
this happened.
Yeah, or like they've played this game multiple times and they've never, but then like this is the one time where they rage quit or took a break from it. Or even like the rage quit aspect could be just removed. As like, oh, I got a little, like I was like halfway through it, I was getting frustrated. It's like, I'm just gonna take a break and just like never go back to it for like 2 years, and then when they come back, it's changed because suddenly. Because they finally finally left the game. Because that's something also that gamers can kind of relate to. I have at least 2 or 3 games in my current library that I started and I've played multiple times, and then I just kind of like I hit a spot where like it's sort of like not the greatest spot in the game, and it's like I'm just gonna take a break. I'm just not gonna play this game right now. And I've got like a couple of like games that I've already beaten multiple times, and I have like a save file halfway through the game. So,
yeah. Well, what if it's his favorite because he's gotten the farthest, but he only ever makes it to the Temple of Time?
yeah,
Because if I recall in Ocarina of Time, the Temple of Time is basically when you switch to Adult Link.
yeah,
and that's relatively early on, so he didn't get that far in that game. But in this game, he made it pretty far.
Yeah, because the Temple of Time is it's a lot farther along in the quests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it could be something as simple as that, like I will never make it to the Temple of Time, but I really like Twilight Princess because I made it to the Temple of Time, which is pretty far into the game.
Yeah. Actually, what's kind of interesting is like this whole idea that like that's the story's like kind of propagating is like the hero wasn't around, so like the villains took over and like decimated the world and like created this horrible like existence in the game. It's sort of blending the backstory of what happened of how we got to Wind Waker as well, which is another game that came out around the same time, I think shortly before Twilight Princess. Wind Waker's backstory, like right before, as the game starts, basically the hero of time wasn't around when Ganon came back again, and so it was up to the gods basically to try and stop Ganon, and the only way to do that is they had to sink Hyrule. So. Basically wiping it out, and leaving it in like kind of a post-apocalyptic state. And even that is something that is addressed later in later games like Breath of the Wild, where like in Breath of the Wild, it's technically a post-apocalyptic fantasy world because the Calamity Ganon has been around for like 100 years and defeated the royal family, defeated Link, and Link had to go into a stasis to rejuvenate himself for 100 years. And in that 100 years, there was no hero of the kingdom. So like the world just had to try and survive in this like Calamity Ganon post-apocalypse. But yeah, again, the game, just the idea of an abandoned game world is interesting, but it has to do a lot more.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it for you then, gamer.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Well, let's move on to final thoughts. Yeah, I'm still want to partially recommend this. I mean, it doesn't do enough, but I do really like the idea behind it, the concept behind this. It just needs to push those ideas and the repercussions in more ways than how it is. Like, yeah, that concept of like abandoned nostalgia and that melancholy, forgetting something and having unforeseen consequences as a result. It's a good idea, as we've been kind of saying constantly, but it needs to be hit. It needs to hit harder than how it goes. So yeah, I'm still partially recommending it, but it's like bordering almost on a non-recommendation because it doesn't hit enough. It's sort of it's almost hitting that middle ground of like like it's not terrible, like it's not like fantastically terrible, but it's not great. So it's just kind of in that middle space. And you never want to
hit you like it's supposed to hit you like getting hit with a baseball bat, but it's like more getting hit with a pool noodle.
Yeah, exactly. You're supposed to be hitting the feels here, and all I'm getting hit is in like the arm with a pool noodle. It's like, feel bad.
Why?
It's like, yeah, exactly. So yeah, Mikey, these Stands for Evil.
Yeah. So I feel that there are games out there that do the whole guilt trip for not playing them. So if you're gonna have that in a creepypasta, like Cultist has said, you gotta ramp it up to 11.
Yep.
And do something that isn't done in a video game. Like, as Gamer in Yellow usually points out, it would be nice if it affects the person in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think one of the Sonic games did that. Or the Sonic creepypastas that we had.
Oh,
did
it's Sonic.exe, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Again, like
because-
there are other Vigipastas that do that.
Yeah.
And those are usually the ones that we're praising for that ability.
Yeah. But this one is just there's consequences for technically Hyrule, but not for the player.
Yeah, it needs to linger away. It needs to bleed out of simply the game, and it needs to affect the player in a more heightened way than just like, oh, I feel bad because I left this game for too long.
And because, like I said before as well, like the consequences to Hyrule are consequences that the player would have already known because it was told in the intro of the game. So it's not even a surprise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the other thing is like Twilight Princess is already on the dark side for Zelda games.
Yeah.
So like this extra bit I feel wasn't needed. So I'm still not recommending this.
Fair. Gamer, your final thoughts.
Much more I could say that hasn't already been said, but like basically, the story didn't really do anything, is what it kind of felt like to me, or rather, it didn't do anything that hasn't been done a bunch, like by other creepypastas, in regards to the tropes that you brought up and all that, and like all the setups it did for the creepy stuff to happen also didn't happen because, like, in regards to, like, I expected something bad to happen to Zelda, and the most we got is like Midna's like, oh, and Zelda and then we get nothing. We don't even know what happened.
Yeah, it's kind of it's insinuating that like Zelda died or was
but
killed.
It's a creepypasta. You could write the most vile, disgusting, gory shit.
Okay. there yes you can, but there is something to be said for subtlety and like read between the lines kind of like notes and stuff like that. Like you don't have to show like the story can just tell them like, yeah, the character died because you weren't around. You don't have to go like all. I am kind of partially agreeing with you. Like, yeah, like go big, but like also like you don't have to be so blatant with like all the time. Yeah, pick your battles basically. It's like pick your pick your scenes like carefully.
Yeah, but regardless, like the story is done so subtly that it's almost hard to notice that there's anything actually creepy happening in it. Like the only creepy thing that we really have happening is the characters referring to the player, but as Mikey brought up, other games have done that, which means it can be something that is actually just programmed in the game already.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of this is pretty much. This could just be a ROM hack, or again, like turns out his sister's just a real bitch, and just like printed a ROM hack on a GameCube disc.
No, what I'm bringing up is the things that happen in this game could be something that were actually coded in the game by Nintendo.
Oh yeah, that's
how subtle everything is.
That actually, yeah, that would be. It's one of those like it enters that Vigipasta style like trope where it's like the developers there's a secret the developers added to the game that if you don't play the game like a save file for too long, it triggers this this new version of the game in the already existing game.
Yep. About the only argument that can be put against that theory is the fact that like when he loaded in, all the trees and grass and stuff weren't there.
Yeah.
Like if the game ran normally, but that happened, then yeah, it's just programmed in there by Nintendo.
Yeah, and actually, even like that, like because some of that could be removed. Like, and honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, like the way he was describing like how Hyrule Field looks, like aside from Hyrule Field being almost endless, it was also completely dark, like completely black around the character. That's basically just being in Wolflink's like extrasensory form, like where because like it creates a spotlight around the character, but everything else around you is dark. It has like a fog of war around you. So, and it's just in this instance, the fog of war encroaches on you as you move deeper and deeper into this liminal Hyrule field. But yeah. So no recommendation.
Yeah, I can't really recommend it. It needs to do a lot more. Like again, like what you said before, the concept is good. It's just it doesn't go hard enough with it.
Yeah,
it's so subtle that it could just be a secret programmed thing that the developers did.
Yep. Well, then I guess 2 non-recommendations and 1 partial bordering on non-recommendation for Midna's Sorrow. But that has been this week's episode. So if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted. We're all on Twitter, kind of, not really. Sad.
Twitter's dying.
Yeah, X or Twitter is dying. But Mikey is on there as the East End for Evil. The Gamer in Yellow he's got a Twitter called the Gamer in Yellow, but without the W at the end because his name is very long.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm at Review Cultist. I'm also on Blue Sky, so you can send me messages there. We also have an email address, so you can send us emails there at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTAS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah! And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Select the package you'd like to support us at. We have special episodes, early access, and extra content. To our patrons that help support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into the void, into the dark, liminal Hyrule field space, with Midna's Lament playing. And if you didn't write these stories and post them online for people to read and enjoy or get creeped out at or critique in our as is the case for us, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for Evil.
Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well.